Welcome back to TK Tennis. So whether you're 16 or you're 60, I wanted to show you this video that I took at Indian Wells this year. No matter what your age, you can get a lot out of this video comparing the modern classic forehand that this gentleman right here uses compared to what Thomas Mahatch uses on the Pro Tour today. So I asked my wife to run over and get some video of Thomas Mahatch when we were at Indian Wells because I figured he was going to be playing with another top player. But I found out after watching the video that this older gentleman, who is certainly no spring chicken, was playing with him instead. And then I thought I would just probably trash the video. But the more I watched the video, the more enamored I became with it, comparing what Daniel Vacek has, which is his coach, which I realized later on was his coach, compared to the next gen Gull-Wing forehand that Thomas Mahatch has. And I thought there's a lot to learn, so I wanted to give a couple of tips. One will be on the one-handed backhand. And by the way, to differentiate this, let's make sure we know what the modern classic forehand is. It's not that much different from the modern forehand that you'll see like Carlos Alcaraz use or Novak Djokovic. The biggest difference between the modern classic forehand and the modern forehand is really in the grip. The grip on the modern classic is an Eastern grip, and that's what Daniel Vacek is using, versus what someone like Novak Djokovic will use, or Carlos Alcaraz, a semi-Western or even a Western grip, like some other players would use. So let's start out on the one-handed backhand. So for you one-handers out there, this is for you. So you're going to watch Thomas Mahatch hit a backhand to Daniel Vacek here, and you're going to notice here comes the ball, and you're going to watch Daniel Vacek start to turn, and the ball is bouncing right about here. So the first thing I want you to notice how Daniel's shoulders are turning here and how he's engaging his core by coiling up the core. And as we move this forward, you're going to see even more so. The racket continues to come back, the shoulders continue to turn, and his abs are fully engaged, and he's loaded up being fully coiled. Now you're going to watch Daniel start to move his racket forward, and this is going to be the biggest tell here. So you see that his racket is moving forward now, and notice it's very important how his arm is already straight at this point, which means it's going to continue to be straight for the rest of the swing. So now he removes his racket forward, and notice right here he makes contact. And what I want you to notice here is where his hand is, how it's far out in front of him, and you can barely see it even though we're directly behind him, which means his hand is out in front of him, his arm is fully extended, and his hand is not over here, and the racket is not further over here. And this is one of the biggest problems that more recreational players make, is that their arm and their hand and the racket are too far off to the side versus out in front of them. Now you're going to watch it even more so as I move one frame forward. Again, notice how his hand is barely visible, which means his arm is straight and it's way out in front. And the big deal here is that his entire body weight is behind his arm and his hand, which means the force of the ball is able to be sort of like an immovable object. He's a lot heavier and stronger because his body is right behind his hand and it's not off to the side. And that allows him to hit a very clean, firm, strong shot versus what many recreational players will have, as their hand and their racket will be too far off to the side. Now, the problem with that is if it is off to the side, in order to gain more leverage, you typically need more racket head speed so that you can generate more mass from the racket and the racket head speed to impart against the force of the ball. The problem with that becomes if you try and swing harder or generate more swing speed to make up for the lack of leverage, is you oftentimes will hit the ball later and less out in front of you, which breaks down the rest of the entire stroke. So that's it for the one-handed backhand tip, is to really hit it out in front of you. It's probably about 1.5 feet out in front of him, out in front of his right shoulder with his arm fully extended versus not off to the side. And this is paramount for any one-handed backhand player to do. Okay, now moving on to the modern classic forehand that Daniel's going to hit here. You're going to watch the ball come in and it's just about ready to bounce, and you see that Daniel has done his unit turn, and you can see that he has coiled his abdomen and his waist is turned a little bit as well, and he's coiled up on his forehand, and he'll continue to coil here. And also, don't mistake this as sort of old school swing. The only thing, again, that makes it really old school is his grip, but his footwork is, again, in an open stance, so a very modern open stance. And everything about this looks very similar to someone like Novak Djokovic, except for the grip. Now, as the ball bounces, this is what I want you to pay most attention to. As he starts his forward swing, this is what's going to be super interesting, is you're going to watch his arm and his racket come around here. And in parallel, you're going to watch his shoulders locked in with his arm and his hand as well. So as we move this forward, pay close attention to his shoulders, and notice as his shoulders turn, his hand is moving forward. So his shoulders are dragging his arm forward. See that, back and forward. He has his wrist laid back like you normally would in any sort of modern swing, and his shoulders are turning, but again, shoulders turn, arm turns. So they're in unison, sort of locked together at this point of the swing. So as he turns his shoulders more and strikes the ball, he hit it maybe a little bit late. You can see his racket deflect. That's not ideal. But again, because his shoulders and his core are turning effectively, he's still able to strike a strong, firm ball. And it's not up until right about here when his shoulders are fully open that his arm sort of separates from his shoulders just a little bit. They're still linked together, but his arm is being propelled by the shoulder turn. Now, this is something that happens to a lot of players, especially as they get older, is they start arming the ball more. If you watch a lot of recreational players, you're just seeing their arm move and the rest of their body's not moving. And that's something you'll fight against for your entire life, but you'll hit a more effective, stronger, cleaner ball if you don't forget and if you practice turning your shoulders. Now, what I like to do is actually focus on your hips. So you can focus on your hips or your shoulder, but your shoulders got to come along with your hips as well. So for me personally, what helps me ensure that I stop arming the ball as much is that I think about starting to open up my hips, which opens up my shoulders, which allows you to drag your arm along with it and fully engage your core, your hips, your shoulders, which translates into a nice smooth swing. So those are the two tips I have for this video. And if you like these sort of tips and breakdowns, please let me know in the comments. And if you're not a subscriber already, it'd be awesome if you became a subscriber. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next ace.